8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
International superstar, Miss Butter B. Rocker.
You are now tuned in to Butter B. Rocker on Transparency Talks Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Transparency Talks Podcast. I am your girl, Butter B. Rocker. Listen, we have an amazing show for you today. This young lady, she's a serial entrepreneur. She's an award-winning actress, an author, a humanitarian, and creator of 9 Lives Tour. Can you all please help me welcome Miss Vitelle Webb? Hey, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How you doing?
I'm doing good. You looking good, Mama.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so here at Transparency Talks Podcast, I like to dive right on in. Can you let everybody know a little bit about yourself and about your background?
Yes, absolutely. So I always like to say I'm actress first because that's kind of where I started. But as you mentioned, serial entrepreneur, I have added many hats to my to my head. So I'm an author, published author, writer, director, and producer, founder of Us Three Productions, my new production company. So I do a lot of things and wear a lot of hats.
Okay, so where are you from?
From Ohio originally, but I have lived everywhere for like 2 years or less at a time. But now I always say I'm from Atlanta because I've been here since 2009, and everybody says once you're here that long, you're from here pretty much. So
Yeah,
I claim Atlanta now.
yeah. If you've been here longer than about 5 years, you're definitely from Atlanta. You
So
peach.
I've heard. For
Okay,
sure.
so you have a book entitled "I Am," a poetic
I do.
ensemble, which I love the picture. I love the whole 9 yard about it. Can you give us a synopsis about your book? Because to my understanding, this book is based on your life experiences, correct?
It is. It is a memoir and story of my life, but it's very unique in that it's written in poetry format rather than just a regular spilling out my life. It's spilled out in poetry form, so it's a really smooth read. But it also serves three purposes. Not only is it a memoir and a poetry book, it's also a self-help book. So I share the stories and the testimonies of the things that I've been through, the traumatic experiences that I've had throughout my life, and I use them in order to help other people to get out of certain situations, such as domestic violence, to possibly avoid situations, even. So it's very much a self help book. It has a lot of information in it that it's one of those things like, if only I had known, like the things I wish I knew. And so now I can spread that wisdom and share it with someone else to hopefully help them prevent, instances in their lives like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So according to your book, you've dealt with some heavy topics, from depression, suicide, self-sabotage, homelessness, even human trafficking. What are some signs of depression? Because a lot of people don't really know what the signs are. You see somebody
Right.
just quiet and you like, well, just let me not mess with them. But sometimes that might be a cry.
Right, exactly. Yeah, a lot of times it is an unspoken thing, as you mentioned. People can shut down, disassociate themselves, disconnect from the things that they normally enjoy doing, just a change of behavior all around. Sometimes it's even the opposite, in which, people will go out even more. And, then you have drug abuse, substance abuse, and things that come into play. So it varies. There's various forms of depression, different ways that people handle it and deal with it. But, it's important to recognize that in yourself more than anything and see if that's something that you're dealing with so that you can fix it in the way that is necessary to be fixed for you.
Okay. But in dealing with depression, how you're saying, ways that you can recognize it yourself, but how do
hmm
we recognize and how
From
do
the
we help?
outside. Gotcha, from the outside looking in. I
Mhm.
mean, that's a tough one, I guess, it helps if you know the person, you can better recognize the change in behavior. If it's somebody that you don't know if this is their usual behavior, so
Right,
I think it's just a matter of being aware of others, and I think, in this world of social media, we're so disconnected from each other and don't really empathize with other people as much as we used to. So I think just tapping back into that ability to empathize with others and recognize when something's wrong. And that goes for anything, not just depression. We're
right,
talking about homelessness, for example. You will recognize when someone is homeless if you are connected, if you're, empathetic with what other people are going through and not just so focused on self and what you've got going on, and just being aware of the world around you, speaking to people, like just talking to people and listening, and you'll be able to hear what they're saying. Like I said, a lot of times it's that unspoken word, like it
yeah,
just really paying attention.
yeah,
So, yeah.
definitely. Do you think that the pandemic has increased the rate of suicide?
Ooh, absolutely. Yes. And I think that's kind of a scientific fact at this point. I think I've seen that posted many times, because people are, you know, had been forced to be alone, had been forced to really deal with themselves and the things that they were normally possibly able to cover up by getting out and just filling their day with stuff to do. It's like,
Right,
now I'm here with nothing to do but think and deal with myself. So yes, I think a lot of people experience that even more. And also, you got to think about domestic violence when it comes to that. A lot of people were trapped inside with the person that's abusing them, and so you have had a lot more of that going on during the pandemic, I've heard. So yeah, definitely, the pandemic has taken a toll on many of us. Some of us that never even experienced it in the first place, never were
right,
suicidal before, never were depressed before, ever, and they're like, "What is this?" Because we were just faced with a trauma. Really, I always use the pandemic as an example because I deal with trauma and traumatic experiences. And I always tell people, like, if you're listening to me right now, you have been through trauma, whether you realize it or not, because going through a pandemic is a traumatic experience in itself. And it causes you to face those emotions of like fear and the unknown and what happens next, and just all of this energy that you have to try to figure out how to deal with in a healthy way. So,
mhm, definitely. Okay, so you also mentioned self-sabotaging. How does one stop self-sabotaging themselves?
ooh. um, so I guess the first way to stop that is to recognize that you're doing it. That's always the first step in that, because I think a lot of people who self-sabotage don't realize that they're doing it. They
Mhm,
tend to blame it on everybody else. I'm acting this way because you did this or because you said this. And it really takes some self-reflection to realize, okay, you know what? I'm the one doing this. I'm the one chasing people that love me away. I'm the one pushing everyone away and isolating myself, or whatever the case may be. So you just have to recognize that first, that I'm doing this, and pinpoint what it is for you, whether it's, disassociation or alcoholism, or whatever it is for you that's causing you to self-sabotage. And then once you pinpoint that, figure out the help that you need. Because again, it's going to be different for every situation. If you're an alcoholic, you might need to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. You might
mhm,
need therapy, you might need some professional help. You might just need to go to church. You might just need to pray more. Like, it's going to be different for everybody, but just recognizing that that's something that you're doing, and saying, hey, I need to work on this. I need to stop. I need to possibly get some help to deal with this. And that's the hardest step, I think, is
mhm.
recognizing it. But once you get past that and you see that and you start getting the help, then from there you just go up from there.
Yeah, definitely. I went to an event this weekend, and one of the things that he was talking about is the power of your tongue and what you're saying to yourself. And
Hmm.
people don't realize that you technically are self-sabotaging yourself in things that you're saying about your own
Right.
self, you know?
Hmm.
It's already hard to hear what other people saying, and you try to block
Right.
that stuff, but the most damage I do think is self.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly. And
yeah,
yeah, like, it can be something as simple as just we just naturally will be like, I'm tired, like, just I'm tired, or I'm whatever, just stuff that just comes out of our mouth that we don't even think, like, we're speaking that on ourselves even more,
yeah,
like, we're making that even worse. Like, so
yeah, we're
just
putting the
focusing on
energy
the
towards
positive.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, like you gotta purposely change what you're doing. If you recognize that you're, being self-aware, you'll recognize that you're doing that often. Or, I'm sick and tired of this. I'm sick and tired of that. Like, I say that a lot. Let me work on that. And next time I think I want to say that, I'm just gonna say, you know what, I'm blessed. Just replace that word and do it intentionally. That's how you heal from anything, really.
Hmm. So your book breaks down, like I said, a lot of heavy topics, including human trafficking. Do you think human trafficking is overlooked?
I think it's getting more attention shed on it now. I
Hmm.
have noticed it lately. It is definitely something that's being having more light shed on it. I mean, even to the point, you go to the airports and you hear this commercial all the time. You hear the advertisement over the intercom because it happens a lot at airports that people will get kidnapped and things like that. And so you hear that constantly. And now that I'm saying it, some people are like, I'm going to start paying attention to that because, you hear announcements on the intercom and you don't think anything of it. But when somebody brings it to your attention, then you start to really hear it and realize, okay, this is really happening. But I think more people are speaking out on it. And I think, like any problem in the world, as more people speak out on it, others will come forth too, because they'll see your bravery in speaking out and say, okay, well, she spoke out on that or he spoke out on that. And I think I can too. Let me share my story now. So just in sharing our individual stories, myself included, we're inspiring other people to share theirs, and that's what draws the attention to things that are a problem, and that's what helps to fix it. So we can't fix anything by remaining silent. I think that's the mistake that we've made for so long on every topic.
Yeah, that's my next question. Why do you think that people go and handle everything and be silent about it, and they're not really talking about it?
We had a good clubhouse room on this not too long ago on that specific topic, and I think it's just the way that we're raised to not air your family's dirty laundry. That's one of
Mhm.
the phrases that I heard recently that kind of stuck with me. And just to deal with things on your own, especially when it comes to personal things. You have history of generational curse.
So we are talking to Vitelle Webb, and hopefully her sound is going to come back in. She is an award-winning actress and author and humanitarian and creator of Nine Lives. Okay, you back on now.
There we go. I think I'm back on now. I'm so
Yeah, you
sorry about
back
that.
up.
Yes, I'm back up. So yeah, see, the enemy don't like us talking about this. I'm trying to tell you. Okay, so don't get me started. um, so yeah, when you think about the generational curses that we've had to deal with, and you have molestation that has happened in so many families that you don't
Mhm.
realize it until more people start speaking out on it, and just all these things such as that, for example. And we just nobody else is talking about it, so why should we? There's that fear there, that comes along with the fact that nobody else is talking about it, and then the simple fact that we're trained to keep that to yourself. And we had a whole room recently about some of the things that just are bad habits that our families have, especially in the Black community. It's like we teach our kids, you are to be seen and not heard. You're supposed to speak when spoken to. You're supposed to stay in a child's place. Like all of these things that just comes naturally to do because we always have done it, because my mom did it and her mom did it and her mom did it. And so we pass these things down. And even with that, we don't realize the damage we're causing when we're teaching kids not to speak up and not to have an opinion and don't be tattletelling and all this stuff. Is like you don't think about how much damage that could be causing. So I myself am purposely, like, my main focus is breaking these generational curses. And when it comes to raising my kids and even influencing with my nieces and nephews and all of the younger generation, I'm constantly reminding them that to let their voice be heard, that they can have an opinion. Now you don't talk back, it's a thin line, but you can have a voice and you can have an
Mhm.
opinion, and just speak up when something's on your mind or something's bothering you, and being able to have that line of communication. I think that is so important when it comes to just training the generation differently, so that curse can stop, so that curse of silence can stop. And that's on anything, that's on any trauma. People aren't
Mhm.
going to speak up if they're getting abused. People aren't, like, it all starts in the mind, and it really starts with how we've been raised for all these
Mhm.
generations.
Definitely. So you've personally experienced human trafficking, unfortunately. How was you able to escape or, get past that?
Girl, that's a whole nother show. We're gonna need a whole lot more time to get into that. But I'll give y'all the short version. I'll give y'all the short version right now. So as I mentioned, it all starts in your mind. Um, so the way that most people groom these predators will groom children, and not just children but anyone really with a weak mind. And when I say weak mind, that's not an insult. We have a weak mind if we were raised without enough love in the household, if we were not told that we were beautiful, or not told the positive, not given enough positive reinforcement. We may have a weak mind because of that. So a lot of us can be in that position. And so these predators will be able to recognize that in a person, and recognize when they're able to manipulate and groom and brainwash, so to speak, another person. So no matter what age group. So this doesn't just happen to children, it can happen to anyone with that mindset. And so I was groomed, and I was that's how I was kidnapped. So like I said, it was a whole another long story that will take more time than we have, but I'm giving you guys the mini version. And so in order to change that, I had to develop a different mindset in order to escape. When you think about something such as slavery, um, have you ever wondered, like, if there was one, two, maybe three masters here, and then you've got all these slaves, like, why wouldn't they all stand up against these people are outnumbered, right?
Mhm.
But it's because it all started in the mind.
Right.
You had these people, they were groomed, and that's exactly how predators work. They groom people to where even if you're not shackled or tied up or in chains, your mind is stuck there and you feel like there is no escape, or if I try to escape, this is what's going to happen. And so it can take years, and in the case of slavery, it can take centuries to break that mindset, and to ungroom yourself, I guess you could say. I'm going to make that a word right now. And so yeah, it took me some time. It took for me to have another reason to live,
Mhm.
um, which is when I started having children. So my first child gave me a reason to live, and so I fought even harder at that point, because at that point I wasn't just fighting for myself.
Mhm.
So that's really what helped me, was becoming a mother, to get out of that mindset and to fight. And I think just also getting to the point where it was like, what more can happen? You think, what's the worst that can happen? It's like, what more can possibly happen? What
Mhm.
more could you possibly do? I'm just going to take my chances. I'm just going to run and see if I get chased. Like, what's the worst that can happen? I felt like the worst had already happened. So it was a combination of those two things, and just over a period of time, eventually escaping. And even once I did escape physically, I still had a lot of escaping to do in the mind, and
Mhm.
a lot of healing to do, so that I wasn't constantly looking over my shoulder and constantly thinking everybody's out to get me, and all those things that come as a result of that. So yeah, so it was definitely a process.
So how old were you when you first started becoming trafficking?
This happened over like a period of maybe a year, so between 17 and 18. I was probably completely free by 19. So yeah.
Well, good for you. I'm
So
glad to
yeah,
hear that.
that might not seem like too long for some people, but when you're in it, if you've ever been in anything like that, or anything similar trauma, that it can seem like a lifetime. I was only homeless living in my car for a couple of years, and that felt like 20 years. Just it can definitely feel extended when you're in it in that moment.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being really transparent because a lot of people are going through things similar, that
Right.
don't want to talk up, and seeing your story, it definitely will give people hope, that if you
Mm,
can do it, then they can do it too. So, it's
absolutely.
always bold to be able to be transparent. And in your book, I mean, you was very transparent, and I give you much kudos for that because I mean that's hard. But it's therapeutic. It was therapeutic for me
Mhm.
when I wrote my book to tell my truth. So I'm assuming it was therapeutic for you. Is that correct?
Mhm. Absolutely, it sure was. And then even the fact that I did it in poetry form, that's always been one of my coping mechanisms to get through stuff, even while I was going through it, is writing poetry and
Mhm.
expressing myself in an artistic way. So to be able to do that and telling my story, and then to be bold enough to publish it, that was the hardest part. I
Yes.
wrote the story. I've been writing the story for so long, but then I'm like, oh, I gotta push that button and hit send. And then once it was done, it's like, oh, no turning back now. It's out there now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Well, what was that
definitely
feeling
was
when you
therapy.
finally I'm sorry to cut you off. What was that feeling when
No,
you
you're fine.
finally was like, send, it's done? What was that feeling?
I mean, it was mostly fear at first. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It was mostly like, oh my gosh, you start running through the list of everybody who's gonna read it and what they're gonna think, and especially the people who may have been a part of your story, or
Mhm.
family who feel like they knew you at that time and they didn't really know what was going on from your point of view. Like they're gonna see your point of view now and be like, I don't remember that, like just you start thinking about everybody's opinions and all that different stuff. So yeah, it's mostly fear at first, but afterwards, especially once the testimonials start coming in from the people that you're helping because you're sharing your story, it really
Yeah.
starts to outweigh all of that fear. All of that stuff goes out the window. It's like, you know what, this is worth it. I'm so glad I did this because I'm saving other people's lives now. So whatever anybody could possibly say negative is nothing compared to what I'm doing on the good side.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you're a mother, you're a serial entrepreneur, you're an author, you're doing all of these things, a writer, director, actress, everything, right? How do you
Yeah.
separate your work and your life, your personal life?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, so I admit I'm a workaholic. I often, like today, for example, I have my promotional shirt on right now. Me and my kids are about to go out and promote. So I often combine the two together. I try to make it a family affair even when I'm working. But I definitely have to disconnect as well from work sometimes. So I
Mhm.
actually just this past weekend went on a camping trip with the kids out in the out into the wilderness. So sometimes I have to literally go far away out to the wilderness where my phone does not work in order to in order to get that escape and just focus on family. So it is important to have that balance. It's not always easy, but I'm self-aware. Again, it all comes down to self-awareness for me, because when I realize, you know what, I've been working nonstop, I haven't rested, or I haven't spent time with my family, let me just go ahead and sit everything to the side and fix this problem that I'm now aware of. So yeah, just I take it one day at a time and do whatever applies to that day. Today we're going out promoting on the streets, and then we're gonna go promote at a movie theater. We're gonna catch a movie while we're there. So it's like I try to combine the fun time and the family time with working also. So make it fun.
And then another thing that you're doing old school guerrilla style marketing, which people
Yeah.
don't do nowadays. So,
Right.
that's a really good thing too, because people
Right.
only are, into the internet now. And I'm like, there's so many
Mhm.
ways that you can still get your stuff out there, the traditional
Right.
way. So kudos
Mhm.
to that as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So during the pandemic, you wrote, directed, produced all of this wonderful things, 9 lives. So can you tell us
Mhm.
about the experience?
Alright.
Because you did 3 shows virtually, and now you're
Mhm.
ready to do a tour, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Tell us what Nine Lives
Yes.
is and how you came up with it, the whole 9 yards.
Okay. So Nine Lives is actually based on the book I Am. So it is, as you can see, there's a lot of different characters here. I have 9 different characters that I play. It is a one-woman show. I'm actually all of those people that you see there. And each one of them deals with a different topic. So the way my book breaks down, because of all the various traumas that I've experienced, each one of these people here deals with a different topic. So one will be homeless, one would be dealing with domestic violence, one would be suicidal and depression. So it breaks down each of these traumas so that you can find that one that you relate to, or maybe you relate to more than one. You never know. But
Mhm.
it is a one woman show, and it also is a therapy session in itself. Like it's literally, the setting is in a therapy session. So that's exciting. And just like with my book and the other shows that I've done prior to this, I always combine multiple different genres. So I
Mhm.
can't just do one thing. With this one, I combine film and play. So it is like you'll be seeing a movie premiere, but you'll also experience the live stage performance throughout it as well, so that it's like you're in the movie. I always involve the audience and include them in some way. And we're also incorporating dance into this one too. So you're going to experience dancing, singing, as well as a film and a play all in one production. So it's pretty amazing. And it's definitely helping people to heal. Just off of the 3 times we've done it virtually, we've gotten so many reviews and feedback from that. So I'm really looking forward to doing it in person. One of the great things about doing it in person is that when people come and see the show, there's definitely going to be some triggers. There's definitely going to be some wounds open, or maybe something revealed that you didn't even realize was there, that you were dealing with, that you can relate to. And so rather than just having people come to a show and then sending them on their way and go about their life, I'm actually going to have people set up in the arena to where they can actually go to the tables after the show and get the help that they need. So we're going to have therapists, life coaches, people who deal with these different topics, so that they can go get further assistance and their healing journey can continue even after the show. So I'm
Nice.
really excited about that.
Nice.
Mhm.
I went to my first one man show, and I've never seen one, and I was really curious. I'm like, well, how is he going to, because I do plays, but I had
Mhm.
a lot of people in my play, and I'm like, how is
Right.
he going to do a one-man show? And I was so
Right.
impressed that he was able to do all of these characters. So you're doing 9 characters.
9 different characters, and some of it's film and some of it's live in person. So you just got to be there to to see what's what. But yes, 9 different characters. It was a challenge, and believe it or not, I gave myself a 30-day challenge to do this whole production. And so it literally was written, filmed, everything in less than 30 days, because about 15 of those days was me procrastinating and not wanting to do it. I literally was like, no, God, I don't want to do that. That's too hard right now. I don't have this, and I don't have all these excuses that we have. So I finally gave in. And then once I filmed it, it took 2 days to film. The night before I went to film, I laid out all the costumes and everything that you see, and started putting the character with their trauma. And it just came together like literally in just a few days. And then the rest of it was editing for like the last 15 days.
So what's your process to get into your projects? Because I can tell you seem kind of like me. When you start a project, you go all out.
Right. Definitely. After procrastinating for a long period of time. So, I mean, I think my process is that is part of my process, strangely enough. I just gotta be honest, like, God will put something on my heart to do, and I just don't really wanna do it at first. Like, I just feel like that's too much, or I don't have the resources right now, and all of these different things. So that's honestly, that's part of the process, that I think I should be honest about that, because a lot of people can relate to that.
Mhm.
And so once I get past that point and realize, God's going to provide everything I need, and this is what He wants me to do, and I just say yes and just start going into it and through the process, it just really happens so naturally that I can't do anything but sit back and know that that's God, because I'm like, I couldn't have done that. There's no way I could have done that. Even with, especially with this show, it's like to play all those different characters and then edit it too. Like when I say one woman show, I'm not just talking about in front of the camera. Like I'm the behind the scenes production, the whole production company. I'm doing all of that. And so I'm like, that's impossible. But with God, all things are possible. So, it's part of the process is just me just let Him have His way and just going with the flow. Definitely taking moments to break away and go just be out in nature and disconnect from any distractions and things like that, is a part of my process as well. And then it just kind of falls together. So when it comes to getting ready for a character, I just kind of become that character. In the
Mhm.
case of these characters, I had to keep changing characters. So it was like every time I changed my wig, then by the time I got my makeup done and everything, then I felt like I was that person. I had that amount of time to really just focus on what they were thinking and feeling, and just disconnect from myself completely, and every other character in the show, and just focus in on that one. So at that point the accent came out, the emotions that this person was feeling, the demeanor, the way that they move and their body language and everything. Like everything just changed when I became that character. So I just feel like it's just a God-given gift that I can't even really explain into words. So
I actually think it's real cool that you are editing and doing your own stuff, because now that I am writing, directing, and producing and everything, and I know how to edit. I have never edited a film, but you know what you want is what I'm getting at. You know exactly what you want. And so you being able to do all of that, you're going to portray and show everybody exactly your vision, and what you've created untainted,
yeah, and that's the best part of the process to me, is just sitting back and seeing it come to life. Is like, whoa, that is what I've been envisioning all this time, and it looks just like, sometimes even better, usually even better than what I could have envisioned. So that's my favorite part of the process, is the final product.
Yeah,
Getting to
yeah,
let everybody else see what I've been seeing all this time.
yeah, definitely. So what is your motivation to push through?
I think I mean, I have several of them, so I'm trying to narrow them down here. I think my main one is the next generation. That's my main motivation. And like I said, not just my kids, but my nieces, my nephews, everyone that they'll ever know or impact or experience in their life. Because it's all about our future at this point. And so, yeah, that's my main motivation, is just this next generation and life being better for them than it was for everyone before them. So,
Okay. So where is your it's not a place. Where is your production going to be? Do you have a website for it that people can go to? Is it going to be in multiple cities? The whole nine yards.
it is. So we're kicking it off in Atlanta coming up in just 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm excited about that. And then after that, we're going to be headed to South Carolina. We've got something lined up in Kentucky. Jacksonville, Florida, and Texas are the ones that I have in mind so far. But that's not to limit it to that. It's limitless. I am taking requests right now for anyone who wants me to bring the show to them. The great thing about this show is I only have to pack a couple of people with me to help out. I've got all the characters and cast right here, so that makes it easy. But yeah, so we're taking requests to wherever we're needed. I'm open to wherever God sends me and whoever may request. But the website for me personally is Vitelle.net, and that website is kind of just the catch-all for everything right now until I get a bigger production team and we have it broken down. But yes, Vitelle.net is where you can go to find out more about any of the projects that I have coming up, even my books and all of that stuff.
Okay. Well, I would like to thank you so much for being a part of Transparency Talks podcast. You really discussed a whole lot of things. I encourage everyone to get your book, and also make sure that you go to her website and book her. Come to have her production come to your state. She travels overseas. She'll go there too. So make sure you guys tune in and support her.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Not a problem. Well, with that, everybody, we are out of here. And we're going to make sure that we put your link in the comments and everything so everybody can go to your site, and make sure you go support, get the book, get the tickets. 9 Lives is coming in 2 weeks. So make sure that you guys definitely support.
Absolutely. And also, if you're interested in getting direct information sent straight to your phone, you can also text me. That number 770-626-5075 if you'd like to be added to my text list.
Also, are you still taking sponsors?
Yes, I am going to, probably for the next week. I'm not going to go too close to showtime. I'm pushing it. But if you'd like to have a commercial advertised in the show, you can reach out for that as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And it was a pleasure speaking to you and seeing you.
Thank you. You too, love.
All right.
Thank you,
Talk to
as
you later.
always. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.